All right, let's talk about the wheelchair dilemma, a handicap think ahead. The issue: there's a student who has been previously not handicapped, is now in a wheelchair following a football injury. He got that football injury while playing for a very crucial game for your school. Part 2: not all the classrooms in your high school are wheelchair accessible. I would say approximately 50%. The Issue 3: the college that the student might want to attend requires a biology class as a prerequisite. Hence the issue. The biology class, none of the biology classes are handicap accessible. Now, a little background on the student. The student's family transferred to the school district so that he could play on the football team. His spine was permanently injured while playing for a crucial game. It was an unfortunate accident, but no one was at fault and no civil or criminal proceedings were made because of it. He was hospitalized for several months due to rehab, spinal rehabilitation, that kind of the medical issues. He continued his classes while in the hospital through the school. Despite his injuries, his parents hold that he needs no other accommodations than the basic access. So there are no mental issues, no other disabilities short of the fact that he cannot use his legs. Now, little information was shared concerning the state of the student's enrollment plans between the principal and the counselor. So the principal did not know what the student exactly was planning on enrolling in. That was the job of the counselor. The student and the parents were told by the counselor that some of the rooms wouldn't be accessible for a wheelchair. However, here's where another issue pops up. The counselor did not inform them of which rooms were and weren't accessible, and therefore which classes may or may not be able to be taken because of that. Now, the district is mostly up to accessibility standards, with the exception of the high school only being 50% accessible, being that it was built in the 1950s. Funds are very limited. So, we come to the meeting. After the student was informed of the change, the parents request an immediate meeting. They bring a lawyer who implies legal issues with FAPE and Section 504. Now, the question on FAPE: is the student being discriminated against or denied an appropriate education? The answer there is no. FAPE and IDEA only require that the student be allowed those classes that are required for graduation, not that they be allowed specific classes specific to a specific university. Is the student being denied access? No, they are not being denied access to that education, as there are other classes that fit the graduation requirements that are accessible. And therefore, they can graduate and be college and career ready according to state standards by taking those classes. Does it fit their specific plan? No. But there is not an IEP or a 504 plan in place that would dictate that the school needed to make those modifications. So, therefore, no, he is not being denied access to anything that would not be denied to any other student for the exact same reason. Therefore, it is fair and equal treatment of all students. However, is it equitable? We'll get into that later. Are his rights being violated? No, but there again, this is obviously an issue that needed to be dealt with previously and was not, so we'll be getting into that as well. 504, is this in play? No, only in regard to the basic question of accessibility. Were there violations of the students' rights? No, the law simply says that they have a right to an appropriate education, not to an education, any education that they want or any class that they choose. As long as the school is meeting the requirements for graduation, then the students' rights are being satisfied. Is a hearing needed? Well, the parents can request one. They can file a grievance if so determined, but they will likely be denied by the state as there are no academic or educational grounds for the grievance. Again, the graduation requirements are being met. Therefore, since the graduation requirements are based on the college and career readiness standards, obviously, they are getting a appropriate, as deemed by the law, education. Therefore, they can call for a grievance, but it will probably be denied. Now, what steps to take after the meeting? Since a lawyer is involved, you need to immediately inform the superintendent and other district office personnel that need to be informed of that, and the district lawyer as soon as possible or within a reasonable amount of time. The sooner the better, as far as I'm concerned. You would need to, you would also need to talk to the counselor. And my big thing would be finding out, is this kind of situation common, or is this a one-time occurrence? In a school with over 3,000 students, I would assume that there are more students than just this student that are having issues with not being able to take the classes they want simply because of access. And obviously, this situation needs to be corrected because, in my mind, it makes absolutely no sense that we can't find some way to accommodate these students for these classes, whether it is a legal requirement or not. We are educators. We need to make this a priority. We need to allow access for every student as much as humanly possible. To identify the solutions, you have to look at the problems that are being displayed. One, I'm seeing a strong favoritism of athletes. This creates an unequitable situation in that some students are naturally going to be given a lot more options and advantages, preferences, and so forth, simply because they're on the football team. Is this right? I don't feel that is correct. Now, funds are low, but also the question could be asked, are they being spent on areas where they aren't as needed, such as upgrades to the football stadium instead of putting in that extra elevator that might allow more classrooms to be wheelchair accessible? The class layout is not considered when making improvements. Why are the science classes not accessible? These classes, along with music, art, industrial arts, PE, certain classes that rely on a specific room layout that cannot be easily moved or transferred, need to be prioritized as being first on the list for being improved for handicap accessibility, because you simply cannot move those classes to another room very easily. Now, also, why is there not a list of these classes that aren't handicapped accessible so that whenever you are planning your schedule, you can actually make for sure that the students are aware and adaptations are made or options are taken into account before the student actually starts in the class, instead of, oh, well, by the way, I overlooked it. That seems to be a poor planning issue there. And plans for this type of occurrence weren't in place, obviously, or else this occurrence would not have happened, because there would have been a plan in place to take care of it before it occurred. Equity. When looking at equity, how many students who are seriously injured get a personal award assembly and trophy just for coming back? I don't see that happening for cancer survivors or somebody who got injured in a car accident or something like that. Why wasn't at least one of each of these classes that can't be easily moved to a different room upgraded when they updated the school? I keep coming back to that because I see that as an oversight, a serious oversight on the side of the district and the administration. Now, as far as this situation, it could be used to spur additional money raising from the community, additional awareness to finish the upgrades to the building so that all classes could be handicap accessible. Obviously, there needs to be a lot more planning, collaboration with the staff, collaboration with other stakeholders on the situation to be able to create plans and options so that whenever this situation arises in the future, it can be easily dealt with. Now, dealing with the problem at hand. 1, don't argue with the parents or the lawyer. Stick to the facts and open the floor to discussion of solutions to the problem. Obviously, the classroom isn't wheelchair accessible. That's why the change was made. Can this be changed back? Yes, but we have to solve this problem. Options to make the class accessible to the student that I see as being available. Is it an option to be taken online? Could we find an online source for it through the school that would allow him to take the class from an accessible location? Could the class be moved to an accessible room? Are there other classes that fit the prerequisite requirement of the college in question? Many colleges have several options for these prerequisites in these different categories, such as science and math and English and so forth. So, what are the other options? Do we have one of those that would be acceptable? And the parents have to be fully involved in this conversation so that they're a part of this solution so that everyone wins. And it will also cool the climate. Now, obviously, this also means that you have got to solve this problem of accessibility permanently. You need to use the situation to increase advocacy and awareness of the accessibility issue. Put added emphasis on the classes that aren't as easy to move and adapt. Create additional community partnerships to help increase funds and options for students in need of access options. Collaborate and continue collaborating with a variety of groups to look for and implement additional improvements as needed. And work with the staff to put a plan in place for this type of situation in the future. Thank you.